It's the Mike Novak Show with Peggy Malecki. Green, gardening, and environment radio, flavored with a dash of humor. Welcome to intelligent, irreverent talk about plants and the planet they grow on. Your questions, comments, and participation are always welcome on Facebook and Instagram at The Mike Novak Show and at Mike Now on Twitter.
Good planets are hard to find. Temperate zones and tropic climes. And true currents and thriving seas. Wind blowing through breathing trees. Strong ozone and safe sunshine. Well, good planets are hard to find. Good planets are in demand.
Brought to you by Bartlett Tree Experts. Every tree needs a champion. Go to bartlett.com.
Jet streams, perfect air.
And here they are, Peggy Malecki and Mike Novak.
Well, good planets are in demand, right?
Once again, now I fixed that. I fixed that last week, okay? I fixed that.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah, there I are. Come on, folks. That was that I worked on that one and I fixed it and I thought I had it done, but you know.
Of course.
But this is like what you were talking about as we were getting ready today. You were watching something, a streaming program last night. Tell us about it.
Mark Dvorak, who Chicago's troubadour we've had on the show before.
Friend of
and
the show,
sings a wonderful. Yep. He did a live concert last night from Hinsdale, a broadcast live. He didn't have an audience, but it was broadcast live on Folk Stage. And at the end of the program, the host made a comment about any glitches, compliment of the internet company, and I won't state their name.
Yes, you can. Oh, you mean our wonderful friends at Comcast? Come on, give those people a ding here.
Go.
Yeah, not necessarily a ding in a nice way, but hey, listen.
So I think we can say that moving forward. Program anomalies. Courtesy of Comcast.
And I want to tell you a story right before we get to our first guests here because I had a similar thing happen yesterday. I was putting the show together and I had football on in the background. And
yes, go Cats, Wildcats, yes.
Yeah, I hear they're pretty good this year. But what did they do?
Maryland, they blew them out pretty much.
Wow, how about that? Go Cats. Anyway, so I have this game on and it was on Fox. And right in the middle of a play, I hear the announcer say, we've lost power. We have no power here. There's no power, except he didn't realize his mic was still on. So there was enough power for the microphone. And he's going, we have no power. We have no power. And then there's this long, long silence, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes where the game just played because they still had the game. You could hear the sounds from the game. And it was kind of nice not to have the announcers there. And then after a few minutes, I heard 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And I'm thinking, okay, hey, listen, this is a major network. So if we have a little glitch here on our platform, which is sitting on my dining room table here and streaming worldwide, and we happen to have a little bit of a glitch, not a bad thing at all. So it's part of the deal right now, folks. This is life in the new millennium, which is only 20 years old now, and I think going strong. So with that, why don't we have a great show for you today, by the way, folks. Man, I am so excited with the guests we have and the topics we're covering. We're coming up on the big holiday. Some people like Halloween better than Christmas. And the one thing that we've learned about holidays, though, especially in the United States, they are massive waste producers. And one person who knows about that is there in your left part of the screen. Kay, I'm going there. There you are. Hi,
That's
Kay.
Kay.
How you doing? That's Kay McKeen from SCARCE. Wait, I thought I hit your audio. There's your audio. And on the right side, we have Amy DeLorenzo from Illinois Extension. And if you went to my blog, and I hope folks do, please, I spend way too much time writing it on Saturdays. And the title is Smashing Pumpkins. No, it has nothing to do with the rock group. It's Smashing Pumpkins, Smashing Pumpkins Responsibly, because we're talking about the Pumpkin Smash 2020, which is happening on the 7th of November. And this is such a great thing. We talked about it last year on the show, Peggy. We had Sarah Batka from Illinois Extension on, and I'm glad that in our lower left-hand corner, we have the person who originated the Pumpkin Smash back in 2014, and that is Kay McKeen from SCARCE. And if you don't know what SCARCE is, and nobody else knows the actual words for it, so they just call it SCARCE. But it's actually, and I've got it here, I have to read it, School and Community Assistance for Recycling and Composting Education. Or just call them SCARCE and go to scarce.org. So, Kay, you have to tell us the history of the Pumpkin Smash.
Well, good morning, you guys.
And Kay, can I tell you, you're cutting yourself off with your camera. You need to slide to your
right.
To your right. There you go. That's better.
There
Thank
I
you.
am.
Okay.
All right. All this new technology, right?
I and people listening to the podcast are thinking, what did I miss? Well, if you're just listening to the podcast, you need to check out the video stream, which we do, and we post. It's live right now at MikeNowak.net, MikeNowak.net, and on YouTube and FaceTube. So, Kay McKeen, FaceBlock, and yeah. So how did the Pumpkin Smash start?
Well, we needed a fun way after we wrote the law for food scrap composting here in Illinois. We were looking for a fun way to get people to pay attention to food scrap composting and no contaminants. And I had been driving by people's houses after Halloween, and all these people had pumpkins sitting on top of their garbage cans. And I thought, what a waste of water and nutrients. And we're going to create a whole bunch of methane gas. I thought, can you imagine across the country how many tons of pumpkins are thrown out? And I thought, what if we could create some family kind of fun event to get those pumpkins composted, get kids involved, schools involved. And Jen Walling and I came up with the Pumpkin Smash. And so you all know Jen Walling from the Illinois Environmental Council. Oh, yeah. So we worked and we wrote a law and she got it passed. So
yeah, we just sat down and wrote a law. We had a couple of minutes to spare on a Thursday, so we just wrote a law and sent it off to the General Assembly. I love the way you're so cavalier about writing laws.
And then a miracle occurred.
But it worked. It worked, you guys, and we're at 377 tons that we know about, and other states have been taking on the project. And we also last year got a call from the United Kingdom. And this year there's a big report in the World Economic Forum about the importance of using pumpkins for food and at least composting them. So, yeah, that's how it started, seeing people's pumpkins sitting on top of their garbage cans and going, we could do better.
Well, we can do a lot better considering that there are roughly 650,000 tons of discarded pumpkins that go to landfills after Halloween. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, it almost makes me not want to celebrate anything because we're so bad at, I'm serious. I mean, if we're going to celebrate stuff, why don't we celebrate the earth one day and not create junk and create waste that is going to, as you mentioned, add methane to our atmosphere? Amy, you're at Illinois Extension, and you're involved in a lot of food scrap issues. You've worked, as Kay has, with the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition. You've worked with Wasted Food Action Alliance. Tell us the importance of, and we all know it, but maybe people watching and listening don't know the importance of keeping those pumpkins out of landfills. And how do we do that?
Absolutely. I mean, I think when I think about composting, I think it solves three main issues for me. So it's food waste is an economic issue, it's an environmental issue, and it's a social issue. So obviously we care about the environmental issue when you're talking about keeping pumpkins out of landfill. It really keeps the methane out of the atmosphere. But, like Kay also said, pumpkins are a great source of nutrition. So that's an a social issue. People or animals could be eating those pumpkins. And then we have the economic issue. So you think about how much time and money is spent harvesting the pumpkins, growing the pumpkins, all the resources that go into it. And when you throw that away in the landfill, it just goes right with it. So there's a lot of work that can be done, and a lot of problems that can be solved when you compost your pumpkins instead of just throwing them away.
Well, a lot of problems that can be solved when you just compost in general. Pumpkin, this is a gateway composting material.
I was just going to say that, literally. Just
okay,
gonna
good.
Say that.
Well, okay, we both get a ding. If you can compost your pumpkin, you can compost anything. And I have to tell you that, especially this year, in the pandemic year, there's been almost no food scrap that goes out of our kitchen and into the landfill. I'm trying to even maybe some tiny bit of meat product because I don't have a commercial composter here. But really, we don't even eat that much meat. So I would say I would venture 95% of everything we produce in the kitchen goes into our composting bin. And I don't have a large one. I mean, that's the other thing I think, Kay and Amy, you might address is you don't need a large bin, especially if you use it. And I used it all summer. And I have to admit, it's just been, and I don't even turn it very much. It's static. And it's amazing how efficient during the summer your compost pile is. Maybe, Amy, you can address that a little bit.
So I live in an apartment. I don't have access to a backyard, so I use a bucket collection service. But I definitely understand, in the warm weather that the compost turns quickly. I think there's a lot of different options people have. So if you live in an apartment like me, you can have a vermicompost bin. You can use a swap out service. Maybe you're fortunate that your neighbors are kind enough to let you try something in the backyard with a earth machine, like one of those Darth Vader type looking.
That's what I have. I have a Darth Vader helmet in my yard that I've had for 15 years.
I've just got one of those big black square boxes. Same.
Yeah. Yep. And Amy, can I ask you, you don't by any chance use Collective Resource, do you?
I don't actually. I
was going to say it. Because they're an advertiser on the show, so we got to give them a shout out. But they're one of the companies that does it, that will bring a bucket to your home. You throw your food scraps in there. If you don't have a place to compost, they pick it up. They swap out a clean, very clean a bucket, however often you want it and how big you want it. It's a great way to participate in this. And those kinds of companies are springing up all over the place.
Absolutely.
I think, Mike, something that is really important.
Go ahead, Kay.
What you said is real important because 90% of the food that we throw out is water. So when people think they're going to have a lot to compost, the water in your compost bin, it kind of evaporates up and it goes back down through the leaves and other things you have in your compost bin back into the soil. So if 90% of what you put in there from your food scraps is water, your volume goes down. People sometimes think they need multiple compost bins when in fact one compost bin can really handle a lot of organic food scraps.
Yeah. However, Amy, as you know, you need some brown material. You need green material, which is generally your nitrogen source, and then you need the brown material, which is your carbon source. And you know this, Kay, because you helped pass the food scrap law in Illinois. You've been involved in so many environmental laws. That was one that I remember way back in 2010. We talked about this. And before then in Illinois, food scrap was considered toxic. It was like
Garbage.
you might as well be
Garbage.
putting mercury. They treated it almost the same way. Whereas a lot of states around us were taking advantage of it, and composting. Illinois was backwards, and that has changed, hasn't it, Kay?
Tremendously, tremendously. We actually rank fourth in the United States of opportunities for residents to participate in curbside food scrap composting. So even if you can't compost in your backyard for whatever reason, we rank fourth in the whole country, which is amazing for opportunities. Now we just need more people to learn about it and take advantage of it.
Absolutely. So I'm sorry I kind of interrupted you, Amy. So talk about that ratio of materials in a composting pile and how you can get your compost good and fired up and decomposing rapidly.
Yeah, so I mean, if you have, a lot of times people are concerned about composting because they say it's going to attract smells or vermin and things like that. And so, like you said, there's a perfect recipe that you need to kind of be a part of. And Kay can help me with that exact numbers because I'm kind of fuzzy on those myself. But oftentimes it's because there's too much green material and not enough brown material, right? So oftentimes we'll tell people to add something like paper towels, newspaper, things like that to kind of calm it down a little bit. Kay, do you remember the exact ratio?
What about leaves?
Well,
Does leaves fall into brown material or green material?
Brown. Definitely carbon.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Although here's kind of a trick question when you ask people what are coffee grounds considered, and they're actually green. They're a green material because
they're nitrogen. Yes,
they're
nitrogen.
nitrogen rich. I did a garden talk very recently where I did everything. It's called "Everything You Know About Gardening Is Wrong," and and we went into that whole myth about coffee grounds and what they do for your compost pile and as a mulch. Whether it's a good mulch and does it acidify your soil? The answer is no, it does not, because you've drained the acid out by actually making coffee. Is it a good mulch? Well, not if you just pile it on, because like peat moss, the water's going to run off. It's better if you incorporate it into the soil. But as a composting agent, it is green. It's considered green because of all the nitrogen in there. So it's great to add to your compost pile. But the problem is, and I went to a conference. This is how geeky we can get in this business. It was
geeky.
It was a food scrap conference, and they were talking about the issue of how do we get, we need to compost our food scraps, but where are we going to get our carbon-rich material to add to the food scraps? It's causing issues here. But it does cause issues if you have only green and you don't have enough brown stuff, or carbon-rich materials in your compost pile. So
that's the thing Amy was bringing up about percentages. Nature doesn't really work on percentages, but it's kind of amazing. So apples that didn't get picked from a tree fall to the ground during this season of fall. And then, of course, all the leaves in autumn fall to the ground and make a huge blanket. The issue with our backyard composting is our food scraps are so full of water. And so if you think about the weight of the carbons, newspaper, unless you've got a lot of it, doesn't weigh very much compared to an apple core. So we always recommend, saving your cardboard egg cartons, your cardboard pizza boxes. Think about your cities. A lot of cities have wood chips that you can pick up for free from their either compost area or their public works area, and they're glad to get rid of it. And what's nice about wood chips is wood chips are kind of a handful. You've got a chunk of wood chip, and then you've got an apple core. So together, that makes a really good combination, because that chunk of apple core and that chunk of wood chip coming together, that allows air to circulate around the apple core, and the more oxygen, the faster compost happens. So we want to think about free ways to get carbon. We know when we used to have a compost bin in our other home, we'd ask the neighbors for their leaves because we needed even more carbon to put into our compost bin.
What do you have now, Kay?
Well, now I have multiple systems. I have a compost bin, a regular 6-sided wire mesh bin for my compost. And then I have a worm bin at work. And by the way, Amy brought up the vermicomposting, and worms with no eyes and no ears and no nose, they will find the pumpkin and they will choose that over other food in the worm bin. It's kind of a little, where's your miracle wand, Peggy? Because I don't know how that happens. There you go. But they find the pumpkin and they will congregate there. They will nest right there. Right, Amy? You've seen it yourself, I'm sure. It is amazing how that happens. So there's lots of ways to compost.
Well,
if it's the sugars or what they're attracted to.
Whatever,
Years
they find
ago,
it.
I read a book that said pumpkins were one of the top 50 foods for antioxidants and nutrients. And so do worms somehow know that? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, let's not lose track of the Pumpkin Smash 2020, and we need to talk about where that's going to be, because folks in this area, and it's gone to other states, hasn't it, Kay?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yep.
it's the starting to spread. And as of going into 2020, you had composted, what was it, about 380 tons of pumpkins, which is just amazing. But we can do a lot better. That's not a lot, really, in the scheme of things. So, Amy, you're working with Illinois Extension, and Illinois Extension is working in Chicago, especially to do this. So tell us about your drop-off location on the south side.
Yeah, so we are partnering with Plant Chicago at the Firehouse at 4459 South Marshfield on the 7th of November. We'll be there from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And you can bring your pumpkins. Make sure that if you have any kind of stickers or extraneous things on the pumpkin, take your candle out of the pumpkin. We want it as pure as possible. But we will be there this year. We were there last year as well, and we're looking forward to seeing everyone to smash their pumpkins.
Yeah, and I got it's talk about timing. Yesterday, a friend of mine who I knew from WGN days 20 years ago, Nina Newhauser, she works with the Edgewater Environmental Sustainability Project, EESP,
Right.
and they're doing a drop-off on the north side of Chicago from noon to 4 p.m. Again, this is all on the 7th of November. It's a Saturday, and that's their drop-off, noon to 4, is at St. Andrew Greek Orthodox Church, and that's 5649 North Sheridan, and you can drop off your pumpkins there. But there are other locations all over the area, aren't there, Kay?
All over. Rogers Park has one at the Community Makery. That's on John Quill Terrace Road. We've got, I don't know how to pronounce it, SOLORIA High School in Gage Park is doing a collection. So there's 19 communities that have let us know outside of DuPage. We've got 16 in DuPage County, and then Lake County has them, and Northern Cook County has them, and Will County has, I know, at least one. And right now, Carmel Catholic High School is trying to either partner with Gage High School or they're going to run their own. And we got a call just this week from a composting company in Elburn, and they have a brewery that they collect all the brewery hops, whatever is left over after making beer. And so they're thinking about being a drop-off site way out in Elburn so that we can compost even more and teach people, like Amy said, no candles, no plastic ears. Yep.
Yeah, get rid of that stuff. And if you want the list what's it, integrated, not integrated,
Interactive map.
Interactive, thank you. The interactive map, you can go to scarce.org/pumpkins, and then just scroll down to the bottom of the page, and there's the interactive map. So you can look in your area and see where there are pumpkin smashes. And it's such a great thing. I mean, if we're going to export something from Illinois, pumpkin smash is a great place to start, I think. So we want, please.
And add some pumpkin bowling to the pumpkin smash.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the organizations I was reading about are doing all sorts of fun things.
Yeah, you got to make
it. It's really fun when
Yeah, go ahead, Kay. Sorry.
I just think it's really fun when the high school kids and the middle school kids, particularly some of the park districts, come up with something fun like bowling. One park district, in Plainfield, Illinois, as the pumpkins came in, they saved the little tiny white ones and the little tiny orange ones, and the kids made tic-tac-toe games. So when kids came, they would play a little game of tic-tac-toe and then see how many more pumpkins came to the bin at the time. Fun ways to teach people about composting And I think it also makes you feel like you're part of the solution. Right now, I think we can all use something happy and something good going on. And this is us a happy outdoor family kind of good thing to do.
Absolutely. All right, we've just got a couple of minutes left here, and all right. And I wanted to discuss just a little bit more about what you're doing at Scarce, Kay, because you do so much to help our environment. What's on your radar? I mean, for one thing, you can take a lot of you moved. Let's talk about that. You actually moved in the middle of the pandemic this year, didn't you?
I would not recommend moving a not-for-profit at the beginning of the pandemic. Let me just start there. It's also our 30th year. We started our 30th year in August, so 2020 has been an amazing year. We really are right now developing our new classroom, and our classroom is being developed to be much more interactive. We got a grant from the Environmental Law and Policy Center and from the DuPage Foundation to help us buy smart TVs and better microphones and ways that we can help teachers in their classrooms with our programs, and also do teacher workshops and resident workshops. So we've been doing a lot of workshops virtually or remotely or whatever everybody's calling all this new technology. Libraries and garden clubs have been calling. So it's a new technology for us. And I didn't even know what Zoom was in March, you guys. I don't know about you all, but that was a whole new thing. So I'm learning a lot. Our team is just diving in. I would say our team has not lost a minute. I think you come to work and you feel like you're doing something good when so much else is kind of scary out there. So our volunteers have been fantastic with the move and really getting used to the new technology and getting out there in new ways, virtual learning, to help our teachers and our students.
Let me ask you one quick question to wrap up here. What kind of an impact has the pandemic had on our ability to recycle and reuse? It feels, from my point of view, that it's really hurt it right now, and we're going to need to rebound from this. What are you seeing?
Oh, I think it's so hard to go to the grocery store and not bring your bags in. Mm-hmm. That has been really hard, to bring home more plastic bags or more paper bags. So that's been very difficult. To see the face masks and the gloves that people are wrongly putting into their recycling bin and exposing the recycling sorters to items that tangle and items that could have the virus. You know, if you do carry out now to help support our restaurants, which we need to do, we have lots more packaging there. So the packaging has increased, the gloves have increased. I have taken pictures of people's gloves. You know, they go out to their car and they take their gloves off because they don't want to put them in the car, and they just throw them on the ground of the parking lot at the grocery store.
Yikes.
So we've kind of lost we've lost a lot. We've gone backwards a lot, I would call it, but we're also scared or exhausted or both with this virus, that I think we're kind of thinking they can only do so much. So what we do in our own homes right now, turning off lights and composting our pumpkins and making sure we're recycling things that are clean and the right items, those are really, really critical. But I will say that we do these recycling extravaganzas out here, and we started them in 1986, and we have one coming up on Halloween morning. It is going to be the second only that I know of syringe collection program. 1 in 12 homes now has syringes, you guys, and EpiPens, and they're hard to get rid of responsibly and affordably. So sometimes people put them in their garbage, and now they poke a garbage hauler,
sure,
or they put them in the recycling bin, and that is a huge safety issue for our sorters. So we're working with the DuPage County Sheriff's Office, and we're collecting syringes for the second time, a community collection on Halloween morning, paper shredding. I love working with Working Bikes. I know you guys have had Working Bikes on your show in Chicago. Yes. They'll be there collecting bikes. So it's kind of a good thing we're getting done, and we're just going to make sure people wear their masks and social distance. So there's a lot of good stuff going on besides some of the crummy stuff.
And that's what you should know about Scarce. They do these kinds of things. So go to scarce.org, find and then hit /pumpkins and find out about Pumpkin Smash. You can go to my website, mikenovak.net. I've got lots of links, including to Illinois Extension and what the Extension is doing there. Amy DeLorenzo, thank you so much for being here. Kay, always a pleasure to have you on the show. And we'll talk again soon when we have more issues and more events like this. So thank you both. Really appreciate it.
Be well, you guys. Thanks so much.
It's our pleasure. It's the Mike Novak Show with Peggy Malecki, and there they go. They're waving goodbye, and we really appreciate having them here. All right, when we come back, I am so excited to have Jerry Adelmann, the president and CEO of Openlands, on the show. Talk about issues. Boy, we're diving into a lot of them today. So stick around for that, and we will be right back after this.
There's a new urgency for people to grow their own food, and thanks to Happy Leaf LED grow lights, your seedlings will be healthier with a better germination rate and faster growth. You'll get lower operating costs and higher yields. That's because the wavelengths are tuned to your plant's needs. They have a 50,000 plus hour minimum lifespan, and they're made in America. Go to MikeNovak.net for the code to save 5% on your purchase, and go to HappyLeafLED.com to get more information. Happy Leaf, it's about the light.
You can reduce your household garbage 30% by the simple act of composting. But I live in a condo or an apartment, you say. Well, if you're in the Chicago area, contact Collective Resource Compost. They give you a fresh 5-gallon bucket or a 32-gallon neighbor tote if you're working with your community. You fill it with food scraps, they swap it out on a regular schedule, and voila! You're returning organic matter back to the soil instead of creating harmful methane in a landfill. Go to collectiveresource.us. They make composting easy.
The folks at Blazing Star know that good soil biology means good soil. That's why they sell products from trusted industry leader Tineo that contain more than 30 species of beneficial bacteria and fungi chosen for their critical roles in soil and plant health. In other words, whether you're a farmer or a backyard gardener, they help you grow the life in your soil so your soil can grow your plants. Go to blazing-star.com and check out their BioGarden line for home gardeners.
It's jungle out there, disorder and confusion everywhere. No one seems to care. Well, I do. Hey, who's in charge here? It's jungle out there, poison in the very air we breathe. You know what's in the water that you drink? Well, I do, and it's amazing. People think I'm crazy, 'cause I worry all the time. If you paid attention, you'd be worried too.
I do pay attention.
You better pay attention, for this world we love so much
Might just kill you.
might just kill you.
I could be wrong, but I don't think so.
But I don't think so, 'cause there's a jungle out there. There's a jungle out there.
One of my favorite all-time environmental songs, but it's not an environmental song. It was the theme from Monk, and that's Randy Newman, of course. And the best thing about that song is when I play it, YouTube doesn't flag me. That's the best thing, okay? And Facebook.
Very quiet.
I know. Shh. Don't want to get flagged by YouTube and Facebook. There's our friend Jerry Adelmann in the bottom left corner. Jerry, you hang on for 60 seconds, and we're going to get right to you. But Peggy has some interesting information.
Yeah, helping everybody continue to walk like an agrarian. You need to think like one to do that as well. And the Center for Agrarian Learning at McHenry County College is hosting a free online speaker series featuring innovative thinkers and doers. It's called Forefront, Ideas in Food and Farming. The next one is Whole Grain Supply Chain, coming up on November 15th. You'll get a chance to hear a baker, a farmer, and a dietitian speak about using artisan grains in their businesses. And then on December 13th, the topic is Regenerative Agriculture, Details of a Profitable Journey, where you'll learn about 6 principles of regenerative farming. The sessions are free, and they're online via Zoom, but you do need to sign up. And by the way, they're not going to be recorded, so you have just one chance for these excellent workshops. Go to mchenry.edu/forefront to register and check out upcoming events in January and February of 2021 as well. That's mchenry.edu/forefront.
It's interesting that they're not recording it because I assume that there are people out there who are binge watchers of these kinds of seminars. Can you imagine? I'm gonna go Saturday and Sunday, and I'm just gonna watch a bunch of seminars here and get some popcorn and let's see what happens. But no, I hope you take advantage. We love what's going on up at McHenry County College. Some great stuff. And speaking of great,
and many of the speakers have been on our show as well.
I know, I love that when they have these events and then there are people that we've already talked to. Well, I think, okay, maybe we're doing the right thing here. Maybe we're talking to the right people. We're talking to the right guy right now, and that is Jerry Adelmann, who's the president and CEO of Openlands. Jerry, it's been way too long since you were on our show, so welcome back.
Well, thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here with you and Peggy, and I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
And I am too, because you guys are doing so much. We talk about Openlands on this show all the time. As you guys say on your website, you protect the natural and open spaces of northeastern Illinois and the surrounding region to ensure cleaner air, water, protect natural habitats and wildlife, and help balance and enrich our lives. And that says it in a nutshell, and you have so many different projects. It's impossible to keep track of all of them. So we're going to talk about just a few today. And by the way, Jerry, you've been doing this now for 32 years. Is that right?
Yeah, hard to believe.
Yeah.
Long time. It's an amazing experience, though. I work with such extraordinary people. I mean, both at Openlands, wonderful staff, our board, but our partners. That's how we get our work done. As a regional organization that covers 3 states along the southern shore of Lake Michigan, there's no way we could do the work we do without meaningful community and not-for-profit and governmental partners. So it's been an extraordinary journey and very rewarding. Yeah.
And normally we would have seen you and 1,000 of our closest environmental friends at the Openlands Luncheon, which Peggy and I just adore. I took Kathleen to it last year, and this was the first time she had been there. And she said, when we left, she said, "Now I know what you're talking about." It's such an amazing event. And of course, you did it virtually this year.
Right. And, many in the conservation community refer to it as their annual reunion or the conservation prom, but just it is the largest gathering of the conservation community in Illinois or in our large, metropolitan region, certainly. And so this year was a bit of a challenge, but we produced 3 really excellent pieces. One honoring Debbie Moskowitz, formerly of the Field Museum, she was our honoree for our Conservation Leadership Award, has done extraordinary work in South America, has saved over 20 million acres, but also has been a real force in Chicago region, especially through Chicago wilderness. Then we had a podcast, because we said this was a virtual journey from the Amazon to Chicago because of her work there and because of the connections between our region and the Amazon, most notably through birds. I mean, all the birds that we see here, or so many of them, in the winter, they're going down to South America. And so we have a very important role here to play in terms of guaranteeing that there's habitat and important, sustainable environment for them while they're passing through or while they're in residence here. And so we had a podcast that Wendy Paulson, who's a great birder, who's on our board, moderated with John Fitzpatrick, who heads the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, which is kind of our premier institution in many ways. They started eBird and so forth. And then also with the woman who would have been our speaker, and so she played a multiple role, honoring Debbie, and also with the podcast, Avesita Tuchon, who is a program director at the Gordon and Henry Moore Foundation, focused on the Andes and the Amazon, and has worked with Debbie for years. And then the third piece, it was a video basically about our large landscape preservation in the Chicago and metropolitan region at Openlands. So it was a great event, and about 1,800 people witnessed in one way or another, listened or saw parts of this. And in many cases from around the world, because Debbie's profile, is so broad and reaches her work, and the impact of it has reached so many people. So while we missed having everyone together, that's such an exciting event in so many ways. I think given the challenges of COVID, it was a good compromise, a good pivot. Yeah.
I'm always amazed at how well you remember names and ideas and just you've got all. See, this is why they put you in charge. You've got to store all this stuff in your brain, and you get to assign specific tasks to people, and they focus on that. But you have to focus on everything, which is it's amazing. And people, I think I know everything about everything because I do a radio show and I tell them, no, I just ask questions. But you're keeping track of this. And one of the things that you're working on right now that I'm very interested in, and I know you are, is the Renew Conservation Corps Act, which Illinois Senator Dick Durbin is behind, and so is Openlands. It just sounds like one of the best ways to address our pandemic and the loss of jobs in the United States. Put people to work doing conservation acts. Can you explain the bill a little bit?
Sure, I'd be happy to. We had the honor and pleasure of working with Senator Durbin since early April in helping to shape this initiative and then really reach out to the conservation community, not just in Illinois, but around the country, to vet the ideas. And we were very lucky. You may know West Monroe Partners, a very prestigious consulting firm here in Chicago, founded by Dean Fisher, who was a great conservationist, was on our board at one time. He's on the National Audubon Board, was the chair of the Student Conservation Association board at one time. And he got very excited about this. And we really needed a good business model. I mean, how are we coming up with the dollars, which is over $55 billion for a program over 5 years to employ 1,000 people? And so that was huge. We were also very lucky to have John Rogner. I know you know John well from the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, their number 2 guy, but who was also part of the team kind of shaping this as we reached out to make sure it made sense. So the idea behind it is that, there's so many people now out of work that during COVID, the public has embraced the outdoors in ways like we've never seen before. The importance of having nature close to people, which is kind of our mantra, our mission, that we believe, that nature is vital to everyone. It should be close to where they live at all these different scales. And there's a lot of deferred maintenance on our parks and trails and natural areas. All those things seem to come together and suggest that maybe it's time for a new conservation corps, like the CCC, the Civilian Conservation Corps of the New Deal. That was the most popular program of Roosevelt's New Deal initiatives. Over 3 million people were given jobs. It introduced many to new careers and so forth. So that was kind of the catalyst saying, hey, I think the time might be right. We have the need, we have the opportunity, and a convergence, of these conditions. So the bill would provide funding for federal agencies on federal lands to work with the existing Corps community. You have the civilian or the Youth Conservation Corps, Student Conservation Association, AmeriCorps. There's a whole range of them doing work already, but kind of taking that to scale, but also building in flexibility at the state and local level to put together programs that maybe are more suited to the demographics and the issues that a big city like Chicago might be facing, or a county like Cook. And so the states and federal territories would receive funds. They would use half of those monies for their own work, so on state parks, state holdings, and the other half would be grants to local agencies as well as not-for-profits, so municipalities, park districts, conservation, forest preserve districts. And the kinds of projects that are outlined are very broad. It's tree planting, it's restoration, it's survey work, it's addressing brownfields, urban gardens, urban farming, a pretty broad range, but focused on green infrastructure, not on, kind of the gray side of it, which is also important, but not part of this bill. So Senator Durbin then introduced the bill, knowing that it wouldn't pass as a freestanding bill, but allowing us to kind of define the program and have something that we can use to reach out to many around the country, other organizations and constituents, to really get consensus around this. The goal, I think, is really to see what happens in the next administration. We know that if Vice President Biden is elected, that he's already said that he wants to put in place some of these New Deal initiatives or 21st century versions of that. One thing, with the CCC, it was all men. No women, very little diversity, totally different today. And so one of the requirements here is that the teams that would be put together in whatever geography, state, county, city, that it must reflect the demographics of those geographies.
Can I jump in here for a second? Yeah. Several things. Is this, if we don't have a change in administration, is this dead in the water, for one thing?
I don't think so. I mean, recently, as you know, the Great American Outdoors Act passed, which was the most significant funding initiative for conservation in over 30 years. That had strong both Republican and Democratic support. So I don't think it's dead if, in fact, there's a second Trump administration. There seems to be a lot of resonance with this program with people across the lines, in both parties. I think it'll be a challenge, but I don't think it's necessarily out of the question.
But it is a
that
job
it could happen.
creator, though. Being a job creator, there's
over, and it's also not just putting people to work. That's important, but it's introducing them to new careers and jobs within the green industry. And so there's a very strong educational component, an apprenticeship component. If someone works in this for a year, they have a $5,000 stipend for continued education, as an example, complementing the educational initiatives that would happen during the program. So it is very much a jobs bill, first and foremost, that would complement the Great American Outdoors funding bill. We could leverage those dollars dramatically. So we're excited about it. It's still uphill, but it's gaining momentum. NRDC has endorsed it, the Land Trust Alliance, a number of national organizations are all reviewing it and enthusiastic about it.
And
Wired Magazine this article, by the way, just yesterday, where they showcased this and the need for a CCC initiative.
And it sounds to me it's a nice way to get around the whole issue of the Green New Deal. If you say, well, what I'm interested in is the Renew Conservation Corps Act, and you get out of that whole mindset of the political gamesmanship, and instead say, no, here's something that's very specific, very positive. And one other thing, and then I want to move on to the African American Heritage Water Trail. The other thing is, you mentioned 1,000 jobs with $55 billion, or are there more than that?
Yeah, $1 million. I'm sorry. It's early in the morning. I only have a cup of coffee. $1 million.
$1 million jobs. Okay. $1
million jobs over a 5-year period. Yeah, sorry. No.
No, it's okay, because I thought, that doesn't seem to... Okay, great. Well, let's, and by the way, I've got information about that. You can go to openlands.org to find information about the Renew Conservation Corps Act and about all the issues we're talking about here. The next one I have to tell you about, because I'm going to let me pop up my own screen here, because this is something that happened to me, and I showed you this earlier, Jerry, and this was, I went out with my friend Tom Shepard the other week to play golf with masks, social distancing, and at the end of it, he said, have you heard about this? And he handed me this brochure, okay? And it is the African American Heritage Water Trail from Mobian Woods to Robbins. And this doesn't look like much, but then you start opening it up, and it's just this wonderful fold. Okay, and it has all this information about the South Side and the water trail and the Little Calumet River. There's the Underground Railroad project is involved in this. And then, even better, you go here, and you've got this beautiful
how
map.
cool is that?
This is just the most amazing thing. You guys should be really proud of this. This is really a wonderful piece of literature that will allow people to understand the African American heritage in the southern part of the Chicago region. Can you talk about that a little bit, Jerry?
Sure. Well, first of all, it's not our project. It's a collective project, and it's been driven really by the community. We've been a facilitator, a partner, a supporter of it. And as you may know, many years ago now, gosh, it must be almost 20, I think, we worked to create the Northeastern Illinois Water Trails Plan, 500 miles of our rivers and streams for canoeing and kayaking. And because we have so many units of government in northeastern Illinois, these rivers and streams don't, respect political boundaries. And so often the section within a jurisdiction is too small. But once you start bringing together the people, the agencies that are located along it, they're willing to partner. And so this great plan was developed, the first in the country, a comprehensive water trails for canoeing and kayaking plan in the metropolitan area. And one of them was the Little Calumet, the one you're talking about. So this area has extraordinary resources and an amazing history, and something we didn't fully appreciate early on. But by working with our partners in the community and with the local historical societies and people like Tom and so forth, all of this started surfacing, that this was a center for the Underground Railroad, the Ton Farm. There was the Dalton Ferry was there, where freedom seekers would cross on their way to Canada. Altgeld Gardens, Chicago Public Housing has a very rich history, but most especially it's the birthplace for environmental justice. Hazel Johnson, the founder of People for Community Recovery, launched this effort and was honored by President Clinton in the White House, and where he signed legislation focused on environmental justice. So we're the birthplace of that. That's where Barack Obama got his start organizing, interestingly. But as you kind of move along, the history is so rich, labor history, industrial history, but you get to Robbins at the end. So this is a 7-mile trail. And Robbins in 1917 was formed as an African-American suburb, governed, ruled by African-Americans, one of the first in the country. It also had an airport, one of the first, if not the only, African-American owned and run airport. And this is where many aviators really got their start, including Tuskegee Airmen practiced there. And there were, I think, 10 Tuskegee Airmen from Robbins. So that's just scratching the surface. I mean, Peter Taylor with oh my God, you could go on.
Yeah, I mean, and you just
we need to take that tour.
Right, exactly.
Well, you can. You don't have the hard copy of the brochure, and let us know if you'd like one. We can send that out.
Yeah.
But there's a story.
We've actually had people, Jerry. We've had people on Facebook asking, "How do we get the hard copy?"
Well, I think if they just write to us, email us, that we can get them copies, definitely. But online, the story map and so forth is so rich that if you don't have a copy yet, go to that, and it'll really excite you about the opportunities and the great assets that are there presently. We're trying to improve access, more canoe launches and so forth, addressing some land use along the river. It has many components to it. But right now, it's an exciting opportunity to experience part of our history that's really not well known and appreciated, and so important today more than ever. Yeah.
And I have to tell you and I mentioned this story earlier, but I want my viewers and listeners to know that Tom was showing me this, and we're in the parking lot of the golf course, and a young African-American man was standing nearby, and he politely came up to us. He had a mask on as well, and he said, I couldn't help but overhear your conversation. Do you have any more of those brochures? And Tom said, "You bet I do," and handed it to the guy. And he said, "My wife is really going to appreciate this." And there you go, one person at a time, learning about some of the efforts that these communities are doing. Yes, Peggy.
So somebody from Openlands, and I'm sorry I don't know who, but has posted in our Facebook feed, to get a copy, email getoutside@openlands.org.
Get outside.
There you go.
At openlands.org.
At openlands.org to request a copy.
So cool. This is, I'm so glad you're partnering with these communities to do this. This is such, it's not, as you say in your mission statement, it's not just about the land itself. It's about the people. It's about how they relate to the land. And this is a great way for folks to appreciate the heritage of that region. All right, we have about 5 minutes left and way too many things to discuss, but one of the things I want to talk about is something we talked about on the show about 2 months ago, I think, when we had Peggy Salazar from the Southeast Environmental Task Force on the show, along with Gina Ramirez from the Natural Resources Defense Council, and we were talking about the landfill on the mouth of the Calumet River, and the the plan by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to vertically expand a toxic dump there and extend it for years to come. So, can you address that a little bit? It seems from some of your compatriots that you're a little disappointed that the city of Chicago and the Park District is interested in going through with the plan of the Army Corps of Engineers. Why do you think that's not a good idea?
Yeah, we definitely think it's not a good idea. First of all, this is right on our lakefront. This is one of the last 4 miles of the Friends of the Parks, completing our lakefront trail and park system. This is dredging of our waterways. And so this is where the fill is put, this combined disposal facility. The agreement was it would be for a certain period of time. That time is ending next year. It was already extended once, and then it would become a park. It would be capped and so forth, and it would allow then for connection between Indiana and Illinois and be part of our wonderful lakefront park and trail system. The Corps really waited till the 11th hour. They looked at several other sites to put this. We and others, Sierra Club and many, have suggested that they need to think about it differently. That in the interim, maybe transport this to a landfill outside the city that has plenty of capacity. As you know, we have a moratorium on new landfills in the city. And then really address land use along these waterways so that we don't have all this sediment going in. Think about native landscaping, about setbacks, about a range of things. But this is really an environmental justice issue for that community, which was promised a park. And it always seems to get these horrible projects, that affect health and public health and well-being, as well as the physical landscape. So it's also, I think, an issue given climate and the volatility of the lake, rising and lowering water levels, these intense storms because of increased temperatures with climate. The breakwater is, some people feel that protects it. It has issues, is structurally failing, maybe even the very foundation. Then to have this potentially leaching into the lake is another disaster. So it has so many dimensions to it from an environmental point of view and from a social justice and environmental justice perspective that we feel this is a terrible decision. And unfortunately, the city and park district seems to be supporting it. Are supporting it. I shouldn't say seems to.
Yeah, no, and Peggy and I went to a presentation back in January before the pandemic hit by Friends of the Parks, and then they explained this in detail. And it's just a horrific idea, actually, to take what could be turned into a park, as you say. Is that realistic to be able to turn it? Would you have to do some capping of toxic waste there?
You'd have to do capping no matter what, even if it wasn't a park. So yes, but this was part of the agreement up front when this site was first selected, that it would function for a period of time and then it would be capped and it would be a park. It was a promise that was made to the community that is not being kept.
Yeah.
And this extension would go for at least 20 more years.
Oh, so it would go on. Yeah, it would go on for 20 years. It might go on longer. Yeah, we all know that once these things are set in motion, it's really hard to turn the Titanic around. And this is a point in time, it seems, when this can be stopped finally, because we don't need more toxic materials in a landfill right on Lake Michigan, right on the Calumet River. This is insanity itself, in my opinion. I agree with you. It's not a good idea. That's about it.
Well, there are alternatives.
What?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No,
I was just saying there are alternatives. I mean, it'd be different if there weren't, and we won't go into all the detail of it, but well thought out, economically viable alternatives. Yeah.
Yeah. Jerry, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much. I think folks learned a lot today. We have to do this again sometime because, as I said, Openlands does so much work. You can go to openlands.org. You have all the issues up there and ways that you can connect. I even have a link on my page about how you can get involved. In fact, I have the link to support the Renew Act, so people can sign that and talk to their legislators and make sure that gets done. Jerry Adelmann, have a great Sunday. We really appreciate you being part of the program.
Well, thank you, Mike. I just want to thank you and Peggy for what you do. I mean, providing this forum to get out this information to the broad public, it's so critical. And you have just played an amazing role for, I don't know how many years, a long time as well. And thank you. I mean, it's so important, especially today when it's difficult to get accurate data, good information. We know we can turn to the Mike Novak Show and get it. So thank you.
Well, I really appreciate that, Jerry.
Thank you,
I
Jerry.
certainly do. All right, have a great Sunday. We'll talk to you soon.
I know. Take care.
Bye-bye. It's the Mike Novak Show with Peggy Malecki, and I'm going to blush for a couple of minutes, and then we will come back and have our winners in the 2020 60-second garden video challenge put on by the Chicago Excellence in Gardening Awards. So stick around for that. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Hi, I'm Victor Nakashima with Bartlett Tree Experts. Here at Bartlett, safety has always been at the core of our business. We even have a guiding principle that we call safety above all else. For us, this principle means that the health and safety of our employees and all the people they come in contact with comes first, every day, at every job. As we continue to provide essential tree care services, those safety procedures now include social distancing and even more stringent sanitation practices. Before proposing work or visiting your property, we will call ahead so that you know that we are coming. Once we arrive, you can give us a quick wave from the window or meet us outside at a safe distance. If you're meeting with an arborist representative, he or she will give you a call upon arrival so you can have an on-site dialogue about your trees while you stay right inside your home. For all new work, a detailed proposal will be prepared and emailed promptly to you. With the help of our administrative staff, you can approve and schedule the work from your phone or computer. On the job, representatives and crews will be thoroughly cleaning equipment and disinfecting their hands. Teams will be meeting at the work sites instead of in the office. Crews will be fully briefed in advance and arrive with the exact specifications and goals of your tree care, so that there's no need for you to personally interact with them. Building relationships is one of the most rewarding parts of our work, and that's not changing. While the way we communicate may be different, the way we care about our clients and their landscapes is still very much the same. We will continue to provide dedicated service while safely caring for your trees and shrubs.
Welcome to the Mike Novak Show with Peggy Malecki. Green, gardening, and environment radio with just a soupçon of humor. Or is that a dash? Brought to you by Bartlett Tree Experts. Every tree needs a champion. Go to bartlett.com. Here they are again, Peggy Malecki and Mike Novak.
All I need is good food to eat and make me healthy, wealthy, wide awake. Lettuce, tomatoes, root bacon. What about those sweet potatoes? All I need is good food to eat. All I need is good food to eat. All I need is good tools to make me.
And welcome back to the Mike Novak Show with Peggy Malecki, and we're very excited at this point to be. You can see the names at the bottom. I might as well. Let's see if we've got an image as well. I saw them earlier. I see Renee Lyles. They called in earlier and they were moving about, and I don't see it at the moment. So, Peggy, while I'm doing this, explain what the Chicago Excellence in Gardening Awards was and how we did the contest this year. A different kind of contest.
Sure. Basil and I will actually explain that.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. Hi, Basil.
He desperately wants to come into the office and join the program today.
I'll bet he does.
Well, the Chicago Excellence in Gardening Awards had to do the infamous pandemic pivot like everybody else this year, and we decided early on that we were not going to go out and judge this year, but we still wanted to recognize what gardeners were doing and have some fun as well. So we did the inaugural 60-second garden video challenge, which was an online challenge. We asked gardeners all around the country, not just Chicago, But we got a couple entries from Seattle and other places to go and take a 60-second video of your garden. It could have been photos, it could have been a video, narrative, whatever, and post it to the website. And then it went up to YouTube, to the Chicago Excellence in Gardening Awards YouTube channel, and we asked people to vote. And we did winners from July, August, and September, and then cumulative winners as well. And more than 13,000 views, just some amazing, incredible gardens, residential, educational. There was a few others in there as well. And just, it was so much fun to see what people were doing through the videos. And so we're trying to get Emily and Renee on this morning.
Have you got the...
Did that sum it up?
That summed it up. And go through the list of the winners here.
Sure.
Sure.
So we had monthly winners first off, which went off how many votes people had each month. And for July was Ella Orlovska with Ella's Garden. And in August, the Chicago's Lakeview Community Garden at Diversey. And in September, the UIC Nutrition Teaching Garden were our monthly winners. Then we took a look at the overall residential winners and the institutional winners. And again, this was going off of votes of the videos on YouTube. So overall residential, first place, Ella's Garden, Ella Orlovska. And second place, Solace in the City 2020 by
Easy
Elise
for you
Marin.
to say.
Yes. Blah, 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 blah. And Jacqueline Eden's A Sanctuary in Chicago took third overall. And I know she's got a koi pond as well. And it's because I judged that garden a couple of years ago too. So that was a very, you want to go and see all of these residential winners and everybody else as well. Overall institutional, we had Kellogg School Garden Club Presents in first place. Second place, the UIC Nutrition Teaching Garden. And then the third overall institutional winner, the Sutherland Elementary's Outdoor Classroom.
I'm going to play the videos, the winning videos from the two gardens that were part of this contest. I have those here. So one of them is the Kellogg School Garden, and it's an elementary school, and I think you'll really enjoy this. And then after I play that, I'm going to play the UIC Nutrition Teaching Garden. So you'll get a chance to see this. And if, if you're listening, there is some voiceover for this too, if you're just listening. So stand by, and here are a couple of the two winning videos in the Chicago Excellence in Gardening Awards 60-second garden video challenge.
The 2020 garden season started out bleak. While most of us were quarantined at home, comforting ourselves with many iterations of sourdough breads, here at UIC we had to find a safe way to still get our garden planted, in hopes that we could return to our beloved college campus later in the year. We diligently planted our seeds, and they grew! First snow peas, then arugula, lettuce, and herbs. It was time to get cooking, but our foods classes needed to be held online. Students began to recreate our recipes in their home kitchens. We filmed the instructions, and students got to work. We've made everything from herb drop biscuits to quick pickles to zucchini, carrot, and blueberry muffins. We have noticed more pollinators visiting our garden, and you can see here that our tomatoes have really reaped those benefits. This fall, students used blanched beet tops from the garden to make from-scratch pasta with bolognese, using many ingredients taken right from the garden. The outdoor teaching garden is always a labor of love that UIC students benefit from tremendously.
teaching them how to cook in a very healthy and delicious way. We have a food as medicine course, food science, introduction to foods, food and culture. But students get one-on-one interaction with the garden, and they're able to have a more tangible learning experience through that. So this year was a little bit tricky, of course, because our learning went online. So we were still able to have the garden, but I did most of the work for it just to keep social distancing precautions in mind. So unfortunately, this summer, students weren't able to interact as much as we'd hoped, but we were still able to do some really good videos and incorporate that into our online learning. So the award or the video competition actually worked perfectly because we had a lot of content already created and pictures taken throughout the season. So it actually made a lot of sense to put this in video form. So myself and my TA, Sofia Cienfuegos, she's a PhD student here at UIC. She helped put the video together, and then we sent it to you guys. Thrilled to have so many views and likes.
Well, I take it you got the word out too to your folks and said, hey, if we entered this contest, and schools have kind of an advantage over individuals that they can call upon their students and colleagues to vote.
That's true, and the garden does, it does reach a pretty wide audience. This summer we were able to donate a lot of our produce that, students weren't there to use to local food pantries and organizations in the city. So it definitely does have that greater reach. So you're right, we do have an advantage with the award. But, I think anybody that gets to interact or is impacted by the garden is really a win. So everyone's a winner.
Yeah. And we will say we gave you a small cash prize, and there's gift certificates from our friend Lamanda Joy at City Grange Garden Center. So we want to thank her participation in this. And we also want to thank the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago. I believe because you won the month of September, the UIC Garden did, you guys got yourself a rain barrel, courtesy of Kimberly Dubuclet, who's a commissioner at the MWRD. So we want to thank all of their participation in this as well. So
yeah, thank you. Our students will really benefit from that, and that will definitely go toward student learning. So that's exciting. So thank you. That will have a huge impact.
Fantastic. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let you hang up so that I hope Emily is listening and watching so that she can then dial in, because for some reason this thing is working now with the audio, and we'll just go with that and see what we've got here. So thank you so much, and have a great Sunday, and thank you for participating in the Chicago Excellence in Gardening Awards 60-second Garden Video Challenge. We'll talk to you soon, Renee. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Bye.
Bye. Oh, and there we go. And
I just texted Emily to please call.
Now with the audio, and we're just.
Oh, I can hear myself coming back.
We've got here. So,
you're on Facebook somewhere.
Thank you so much, and have a great Sunday. Thank you for participating.
I think I hear your audio coming up on that end. It must be Renee or Emily.
It was me. I had it on Facebook, and I just.
That's okay. That's
there
fine.
We go.
See, here we go.
Welcome.
The workaround is working, and welcome to the show. I'm so sorry about the technical difficulties. We learn something new every week. And one of these days, we're going to get it all together in the same place. But Emily, tell us a bit about Kellogg School and your efforts there and the video that you put together.
Oh, sure. Kellogg is a small neighborhood Chicago public school on the south side in the Beverly neighborhood. We have about 275 students, and the video that we put together was actually made by a recent alumnus. She's actually now a sophomore at Lindblom, and yeah, she collected all kinds of wonderful footage and put it all together, and I thought just did a really nice job showcasing our garden.
It does really showcase. It's really fun. I love the super slow motion of the monarch butterfly in particular. Who got that?
That was her. I'm pretty sure she got pretty much all the footage. Yeah, I like there's a super slow motion of the butterfly, and then also she did a really fast, I don't know what you call it, the fast motion where she walked all around the school.
Right.
And So yeah, and it, of course, like 60 seconds, we could go on for 10 hours showing all the things that are in the garden. So it's a good exercise to keep it to 60 seconds.
Yeah, well, that was the whole point. Is we can't handle. By the way, well, we wouldn't have been able to upload anything much longer than that. But you guys did a great job, and you said when we talked the other day, you were mentioning a friendly rivalry with a Sutherland Elementary. They came in third overall in the institutional category. So tell us about that little rivalry.
Sutherland is fantastic. Sutherland, it just so happens, is on the same street that Kellogg is located, and it's exactly a mile south. So, and when I say friendly rivalry, emphasize the friendly because they're really wonderful. They have a really beautiful pollinator garden too. So if obviously you've seen the video, but if any of your viewers haven't seen it, go on and look. They have a lovely pollinator garden. No, but what I was telling you is that we had entered in August maybe, and then noticed that they put up a video and they had more likes in just a couple of days than we did. So that got us fired up. We're like, oh, no, we have to make sure that everybody has seen our video. So that gave us a little incentive to push us over the finish line. But thank you for, and I mentioned this the other day too, thank you for hosting this, because it's, especially in, these COVID times, it's, gardening is a great activity, and it's nice to be able to keep the Excellence in Gardening Awards going in some form this year. So I really appreciate everyone who worked to make that happen.
Well, what was it like trying to garden with, were you able to get many kids out to be part of the garden during the COVID year?
We were. So during non-COVID times, we have a weekly garden club that's after school. And obviously when during the summer, we don't have that anyway. So in March and April, obviously, we didn't do much gardening. Nobody was really leaving their homes. And then when it got nice, myself and a few other gardeners were kind of getting out, sometimes working out at Kellogg. And then at some point, especially Mr. David, who's a neighbor who puts in countless hours at Kellogg and is really, glue for Garden Club, said, we should invite some more kids. But I wasn't sure if we were allowed to. So we kind of sent out an email to Garden Club, not sure if anyone would come. And then kids and families were coming. So we started meeting Saturday mornings, with our masks on, socially distant. And sometimes we'd harvest on Sundays to donate to the food pantry. So sometimes kids came out for that too. And we really got going again and had a good turnout pretty much every week. And funny story. So one day, I think it was in July or August, the principal happened to drive by on a Saturday morning because I never told him that we were doing this because I wasn't entirely sure we were supposed to be. And he drove by and he saw some kids working, and then he stopped and he's like, what's going on? And then some more kids came over and he was like, what is going on? And so I was like, oh, funny thing, we've been gardening every Saturday. We didn't want you to know. He's like, the principal's always let us know, but he was fine with it, and has come out and helped and has been really supportive of the garden.
That's fantastic. And you guys kind of stuffed the ballot box at the end there and jumped into the, and that's okay. That's what we told people. We said, get your friends, get your neighbors, get your enemies.
Vote early, vote often.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Actually, our neighborhood association even included it in their email. It really was great for us as the way to show off what we've, how nice everything looks this year.
Yeah. Well, fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you I feel like I shortchanged you today. So, Emily, you're going to be back on the show and we'll talk about this some more. And same thing with Renee.
Oh, you're sweet.
Because I know you love talking about the garden and the kids. and we'll do it right next time. Someday I'm going to learn how all of this integrates, and then we'll do it right. So thanks, Emily. You have a great Sunday, and congratulations on the win for the Kellogg School Garden Club.
Thank you so much, Mike.
All right, take care. Whew. Okay, and that actually, we managed to put it together. So what we're going to do now is wait for Mr. DeMaio to call. So what I need to do is get us into a break here. It's the Mike Novak Show with Peggy Molecki. We will be right back.
Collective Resource Compost wants to show you how they make composting easy in Chicagoland. You can reduce greenhouse gas emissions by diverting food scraps from landfills. CRC brings you a fresh 5-gallon bucket or a 32-gallon neighbor tote with each pickup. You fill it with organic matter, they swap it out, and get it to a commercial composting operation. Composting is what nature would do if we just got out of her way. Learn how easy it is to divert waste at your home, school, or workplace. Go to collectiveresource.us.
Whether you have a garden, a farm, or grow houseplants, you need microbial buddies to reconnect you to nature. The folks at Blazing Star sell probiotics from industry leader Tineo Biologicals, which means they sell good soil biology, which means they maximize soil biodiversity. That results in healthy soil and healthy plants. Tineo beneficial microbial soil components will add a major boost to depleted soils. Go to blazing-star.com and check out their BioGarden line for home gardeners.
Since 2001, DiveHeart has been revolutionizing rehabilitation using zero gravity and scuba therapy to give confidence, independence, self-esteem, and yes, freedom to children, veterans, and others with disabilities. At DiveHeart, we believe in the power of partnership because together we can do great things. Let DiveHeart help you imagine the possibilities in your life. Go to diveheart.org to learn more.
The world has changed. A year ago, you were growing food because it was fun. Now it's important. That's why you need Happy Leaf LED grow lights. Thanks to the best science, the wavelengths are tuned to your plant's needs. They're versatile, they're elegant, they have a 5-year warranty, and they're made in America. Peggy and I are huge fans. Go to MikeNovak.net for the code to save 5% on your purchase. Go to HappyLeafLED.com to get more information. Happy Leaf, it's about the light.
I ain't been nowhere, man. I ain't been nowhere, man. Been sitting in my chair, man. Growing out my hair, man. Sleeping, I've done my share, man. I ain't been nowhere. I'm in the bedroom, bathroom, living room, dining room, attic, basement, just to find an old room, a hallway, driveway, same place as yesterday. Go look, read a book, jog around the breakfast hook, class link, get a drink straight from the kitchen sink. Can't think, eyes blink, man, do my clothes stink. I ain't been nowhere, man. I ain't been nowhere, man. Been sitting in my chair.
Welcome back.
Man. Growing out my hair, man. Sleeping, I've done my share, man. I ain't been nowhere. I'm playing Yahtzee, Jigsaw, Scrabble, and Monopoly, Jenga, checkers, cards.
Okay, enough of that. Anyway, welcome back to the Mike Novak Show with Peggy Molecki, and I can hear Rick in the back.
Rick, yes.
Yeah, Rick, good morning.
Good morning to you, Mike and Peg. How are you today?
We are doing okay now, doing just fine. It's sort of a, it seems like every Sunday now is a gray, sort of miserable.
Yeah, it's just overcast, and
this has been the new pattern for 2020 at the end of the year, and now the cold weather is starting to settle in, isn't it, Rick?
Yeah, I think it's here at least for the next week, but there are some signs that by the time we get to the first couple of days of November, we begin to warm up a little bit. It's not going to last long, but we still have some opportunities for a couple of days in the 50s and 60s, 70 degrees, maybe not, but it's not over yet, but definitely over the next 6 to 7 days, it looks pretty chilly.
just so long as we don't have a snowy Halloween.
Yeah, with the way the pattern is going, Peg, snow is definitely going to be something that's going to be probably in our in our forecast, maybe within the next 24 to 36 hours, could see a little bit of wet snow, but it's not going to stick, and it's not going to be a lot. But it's, you know, you look at what's happening out west, and there's been a lot of, you know, intrusions of cold air, a lot of intrusions of polar air. And again, it's part of that pattern that sets up when you get these big ridges of high pressure over the Pacific Ocean where that warm pocket is. And we get these patterns of, you know, cold air beginning to settle in across western sections of Canada. And all it takes is a couple of waves and a couple of, you know, strong hurricanes moving up the East Coast and along the Gulf Stream. And, you know, we have Hurricane Epsilon, which was a Category 3 at one point. That's pushing the jet stream back north across the Canadian Maritimes. And so you end up having basically a ridge over the Western Atlantic and a ridge over the Eastern Pacific. And where does the trough develop? Right in the middle of the United States. The one thing that we don't have going this year, it has not been very active in the Western Pacific. And usually when you start to see those type of systems develop, they migrate very quickly across the North Pacific, and they kind of metamorphosize into different storms as they go through the Gulf of Alaska. And sometimes those bring some ferocious storms into the Pacific Northwest and eventually into the northern plains. But we don't see anything like that happening anytime soon. That's why I think there's still a pretty decent chance of us getting back into some warmer weather the first couple of weeks of November.
You said something just now that interested me, Rick. You talked about the Hurricane Epsilon affecting the jet stream. I thought it was the other way around.
No. When you have that much amount of warm tropical air pushing northward, it basically pushes the polar front, if you want to call it that avenue or that river of air. It kind of pushes it north. And what's going to end up happening, and if you think back, all the different times we've had hurricanes move into the Gulf of Mexico, they've all basically pushed the cold air, or at least held it at bay, further to the west. And I think that's what's happening now with not only Epsilon moving up into the northern or northwestern part of the Gulf, but even there's signs that there could be another storm, possibly Zeta, that's forming pretty much in the Yucatan Straits. And that has actually looked a little bit better over the last couple of days. The European model has it actually coming on shore as potentially a Category 1 hurricane right over, you don't want to hear this, Louisiana.
Oh.
It looks like it's going to move right over that. Yeah, moving right over that
area's been a magnet this year.
Wow.
Yeah. In fact, guys, I just checked while I was talking to you. They just issued a new advisory, and they updated it from a tropical depression. It's now Tropical Storm Zeta.
Oh,
so
my
we
goodness.
have ourselves the 20, I believe it's the 27th storm. I have to double check on that, of the year. I'm losing track, but it definitely looks like it's going to make a path and move right over that eastern section of New Orleans as a hurricane by early Wednesday morning.
Wow.
And I just don't know how much more those people can take. And again, you know, we've seen this before. You know, when you get warm water up to 84, 85, maybe even 86 degrees Fahrenheit, and you don't have the cold air that we typically have during the course of the wintertime pushed down into the Gulf of Mexico, even though the Gulf cools off a little bit, the depth of the warm water just increases over a period of time. And we've seen this as well. You know, the month of September turned out to be the warmest September on record. And we say on record, that's basically since 1880. And yet this is occurring during a La Nina. So here we have a La Nina, which is a pool of cool water across the equatorial Pacific. You would think that would take the overall global temperature degree down at least a half or so, but it had no effect. So it shows you how much warmer the rest of the ocean basin is across the globe. And, you know, some people say there's 7 oceans. Michelle Hoffman will tell you there's 1, right? So there's actually 1 ocean. But when you look at the landmass as well, you know, the landmass as well as the ocean mass collectively for the month of September 2020 was the warmest on record. And that warm water in that part of the Gulf, well, it's really not the Gulf. It's basically the Yucatan Straits down there. doesn't really cool off until almost the middle of November. And here we are only the 24th, 25th of October when this storm has developed, and it's routinely, excuse me, it's routine for these storms in that area, kind of like what Hurricane Wilma did back in 2005, to form in that part of the Yucatan and basically move across the Yucatan Peninsula and up into the northern Gulf. So this is very common. However, what is common is that this would be the 16th or 17th storm of the season, not the 26th.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's just amazing. Let's talk a little bit about Colorado. I mean, big time. Yeah, it's. Are they going to have that big snow today? And what about the fires? I watched some of the video you sent me. I don't know if you saw the CNN report. And those people, they're devastated. And and a lot of people do get devastated by fires, but you could tell listening to the interviews that they never ever expected it to happen there to them.
No. And part of them is maybe a little bit of, you hate to say naivety, because if you look at those trees in that area west of Rocky Mountain National Park in the Grand County area, Summit County, or I think it's Granby County. I'm not sure exactly the name of the county, but it's in the Lake Granby area. I know Peggy's been out there a few times. Those trees were destined to burn. They have been devastated by the pine bark beetle infestation, which started probably 20, 30 years ago. And this is not the first time it's happened. In fact, I remember I did a research paper when I was in grad school, and one of the climatologists who is famous in the Colorado area, I think his last name is Zeblin, he did some research on the ongoing infestation of these pine beetles. And it seems to have, it seems to come and go. Every 20 or 30 years, you get these, periods of warming where the beetles are able to get underneath the bark and basically chew through the trees. So this is not completely related to climate change. In other words, it's a natural part of the evolution of the beetles working their way through, different parts of, the forest of North America. But again, it's the changing climate and the more variable climate, meaning that it has not been as cold, which makes these more variable, or say makes these more natural events that much worse. And what continues to occur is this, well, the science isn't sure, and the climate's always changing. Even when Vice President Mike Pence said that, the first thing that Kamala Harris should have said, yeah, you know what, you're right, but it's affecting us now more than it did before. And that's what you have to say when you hear people saying, well, the climate has always changed. Agree with them, because they're probably right to some degree, but they're wrong from the overall consequences, which is the net impact is so much worse than before. Even when President Trump during the debate said that, our CO2 emissions are down. And he was right. But what Biden should have said was, yeah, and the reason why? Trump wouldn't have known why. So he would have got him on that, and he would have said, the reason why they're down is because we now burn less coal. Last I checked, you were for coal. Do you want to go back to burning more coal and making those CO2 emissions higher? So tell me, what's your position on that? And he didn't do that. And part of the reason is he's not an expert on climate. I get that. But these are some of the talking points that need to be given to him. I don't know whether or not they are, but that Trump's going to come out with the thing saying, look, we found something that said our CO2 emissions are down compared to what they were 5 years ago, which is true, but they've been down for a while. But then you can actually go in and figure out why. And if you can look and see why, it's because we have so much less coal being put into the atmosphere than we ever had before. So these are the kind of things that if you want to have a substantial argument against someone who doesn't believe that these things are happening or there should be changes, you have to be able to be prepared for what they're going to say first and then follow up with, but did you know this? And then you win the argument every time.
Yeah, and it's a brilliant argument on your part, and I would add also though that in terms of carbon released into the atmosphere, we're still on an overall upward trajectory. The parts
Globally, yeah.
yeah, and that's part of the problem too. Is like if other countries are pumping it in there, we have to be produce so much less to help pull it back, and that's why we need to have things like the Paris Accord,
Right.
and get
And on that, Mike, this is where Biden should have come in and say, you know what, President Trump, by the way, you pulled out of the Paris Accord because you thought that it was going to be something that was bad for our American economy. But even though, and you were right about this, notice I'm actually saying things that make you feel good. And he should have said this, even though emissions have been down, because people like Trump like to feel good. They smile a little bit. But what you do is you capture him and you corner him. And you say, you know what, you're right. Emissions in this country are down, but they're up in the rest of the world. And you're right, they're up because of China. They're up because of India. So why not get back into the Paris Accord and then work with those countries and take the jobs that were lost due to coal becoming more or less a non-efficient fuel is the best way to describe it, and then take those jobs and ship them over to China and ship them over to India, or at least bring those people from China and India here and show them how to do it the way we do it here in the United States to make it more efficient. And that point, you got them. So yeah, Mike, you're right. The overall emissions are higher and continue to go up and will continue to go up. But here in the United States, they're down. So why not use our technology and our knowledge and get back into the Paris Climate Accord and help teach these other countries a lesson? Because at this point right now, being out of it, we're out of the ball game altogether. So it's a win-win when it comes down to that.
I want to get back quickly to to Colorado and the pine bark beetles. Because
by the way, it's 13 degrees and snowing right now in Denver. Yesterday they were 63. So the snow and cold is on its way.
Holy smoke! Oh my goodness!
Yeah, it happens in a hurry. And I'm looking at some of the observations. It's 7 in Cheyenne. It's 4 in Rock Springs.
Wow.
It's 5 in Casper. Yeah, it's 5 in Casper. It's 11 in Jackson Hole. 0 right now in Yellowstone National Park. And while it's 57 in Grand Junction, Colorado, up across the northwestern part of the state, around Craig, it's 15 degrees with heavy snow. Front still has not gone through Eagle or Aspen, but once this front goes through, they're going to be covered with about 2 feet of snow that essentially was brought in by the heavens above. And that's basically how they're going to look at it. This snow is going to do everything possible to snuff out the fires. You can have all the best fire equipment in the world, but Mother Nature in reverse is helping them out quite a bit at this point.
Yeah, so that's a good thing. But
that's
again,
yeah.
that is a great thing, and you only wish that could happen in California as well.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. It didn't happen there for a while.
No. And getting back to the bark beetles, though, it has, because I went out there a few years ago. I didn't get, we were in Colorado, but mostly in Wyoming. And I was taking photographs of just swaths of trees, dead conifers, just whole amazing, where 3/4 of the trees would be dead in any given area. And as you said, terrible. It was a setup for these kinds of catastrophic fires. But what I want to ask you is, you say the warmth comes in cycles, but what if the overall trend is slightly upward? Because that's apparently what's happening in Alaska, and all you need is a couple of degrees, and then that allows the beetles to overwinter, and they have more generations, and they do more damage.
Right. It's like opening the door just a little bit and letting the hornet in. Now you got to try to get it out. Or, wow, what happened? There's a hole in the screen. The squirrel got in. Ever try to get a squirrel out of your house? It's not easy. So this is the part where the natural variability is now we've pushed the begin point further to the left. We pushed the end point further to the right. And the result is that the impact is that much greater. So again, when you hear people, and I don't mean to demean people's intelligence, but what you saw happen the other night, I think it was Wednesday to Thursday night, when that fire literally grew over 140,000 acres in less than 24 hours. It was mainly due to the fact that we had these very, very warm Chinook winds. So one of the things that California gets is they'll get, the Santa Ana winds and the Diablo winds, which is more of a low-level wind. The Chinook wind, and Chinook is an Indian term for snow eater, which means that the wind kind of comes down slope, it compresses, it warms, it dries the atmosphere, and it melts the snow. But when you have Chinook winds, you have more of a wind in the 10 to 14,000 foot range. That's probably 60 to 70 miles an hour. So that the fire will literally grow, not from the ground, but literally from tree to tree to tree, from canopy to canopy to canopy. And then again, we've seen it before. You have so many more people living in areas that didn't 10, 15, 20 years ago. And one of the things that my students did at Loyola for their midterm projects, and I have 80 students in 2 classes, and I broke them up into 2 students per class, and they chose a national park from a list of parks, and they basically did about a 10-slide PowerPoint on the climate, how the climate is changing, and how the park's climate is changing, and what the National Park Service is doing about it. And I literally had kids coming up to me going, virtually that is, going, I never knew this, I never knew this, I never knew this. And that's the key. That's where I want them to be, is to say, I never knew this. And so many of them, when they were looking at, pictures of, Yellowstone and Glacier and Redwood, and then of course Rocky Mountain, they went, oh my God, why aren't they doing more to forest management? I go, look at all those trees. I go, what do you think you can do when you see 100,000 acres of dead trees? And right away they go, nothing. There's not much you can do. Those trees are basically there waiting to burn. So in one sense, this fire was good because it's going to burn a lot of the trees. It's going to burn a lot of the beetles. In another way, it's horrible because it's putting people out of their homes, and in some instances killed people, and that's terrible. Yeah. I don't mean to belittle this, but this was something that you knew was going to happen, and it's a result of us. I mean, we helped the pine beetles get to where they are, and we basically, it's a problem. It's like having not one squirrel in your house, but 5. Which one you try to catch first, and you can't.
Yeah. That's
it's very sad. It's very sad.
It really is, but and as you point out correctly, nature is doing some of the cleanup itself, since we haven't been and this is what happens, and it renews an area, and then perhaps we can help by replanting trees in that area.
Mm-hmm. Now here's the thing. This week we're talking about global impacts of climate change. I have them reading information from one of the main tourism sites in the United States.
Is this your class at Loyola? Is this through Loyola?
This is a class at Loyola, Peg, yeah. Okay. So they're learning about what the National Ski Association is doing at the 470 ski sites, the main resorts, not like Wilmot or something like that, across the country, about climate change. And they call it the Sustainable Slope Program, which is really, really cool. They're talking about different ways of conserving energy, different ways of changing their business model. But you have all these people now looking at all the snow falling, and the first thing you think of is, wow, I want to book a trip and go skiing. But you can't, because a lot of the roads are most likely impacted by basically burnt out forest. So here is now, climate change impacting not only the environment, but also impacting the economy. And that's the thing that needs to be discussed, because when you talk about an $80 billion industry like skiing now being lost by 20% due to either too much warming at the beginning of the season, too much warming at the end of the season, but now you have your main areas being impacted literally by forest fires, and you have them both in California, Oregon, Washington, and now in Colorado. That's a big deal. And for the people who live out there, that is their bread and butter, to put it bluntly. That's what they live on during the course of the year. So again, these are the things that if Biden wants to push his climate change plan a little bit more, a little bit more, I want to call it a little more thorough, so to say, go that direction. Because when he finished up the debate the other night where he said, I want to get away from oil, it was like, whoa, that was like dropping a hammer. It came across way too strong. He needed to pull back on that a little bit. Even though it probably made some progressives happy, that was not the time for it.
Well, my feeling is, when are we going to say that? It's been obvious for a long time. We have to get away from that. So it didn't bother me, obviously, and I'm one of those progressives.
No.
But and I also think that it's reality, and at some point we need to figure that out. So
but when you're trying to win Pennsylvania, you don't do anything that makes you a little bit less likely to win Pennsylvania. So at that point, you got to play politics and play policy later on.
Well, anyway, let's. We've got the brutal cold. I assume is not going to get to Illinois, at least not as intensely as it's hitting the western states. What does our forecast look like?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously it turned cloudy today after a sunny period yesterday, and after that near 80-degree temperature on Thursday, which was quite impressive.
Yep.
By the way, that was the warmest October 27th we've had around here in almost 35 years.
Really?
Yeah.
And at 11 o'clock at night was the warmest.
Yeah, it depended on where you live, Peg, because in Joliet we hit 80. Or they hit 80 at about, I think it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. O'Hare hit at about 5. Where I live in Evanston, I'm about 2 miles off the lake now. I used to be 2 blocks off the lake. We got up to 75, and then the lake breeze kicked in, and it dropped down to 62. And I've seen this so many times. As soon as the lake breeze went away, the warm front kind of came back through. So for people who live a little bit further north like you and up in Waukegan, you didn't get your warm temperatures until about 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And I remember, walking outside at about 11 with my dog, and I'm like, oh my God, it's really nice out. And on top of that, there's a little bit of a quarter moon, and it was about as perfect as you could get. I'm like, why does this have to go away? So yeah, that kind of teased us there for a little bit. So we'll get a little bit of rain over us today, just a little bit, not much. The better chance is going to be well to the south of us. But some of the numerical models are now taking this storm up into the eastern side of Louisiana as a 983 millibar low, which is now looking like it's almost a Category 2 hurricane. And the interesting thing about this is once it begins to move north, it's actually going to latch on to the front side of this big trough coming out from the Rocky Mountains. And this is how tropical weather systems can change a pattern within 5 days. The system coming out of the Rockies actually cuts off and produces a real windy, wet pattern for us beginning on Thursday. So I think the forecast in detail would then be what we have out there today. We'll basically have for us on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, just cloudy skies, northeast winds, temperatures in the upper 40s to maybe 50. It'll actually be a little bit warmer near the lake because the lake is about 55 right now. And then as we head into Thursday, just the windy, rainy period with the possibility of this system pretty much sliding to the south of us on Thursday and Friday. But it definitely looks like the next push of warm air is most likely going to be with us for sure as we head into Saturday and into Sunday as well. So as we finish out the month of October and go into November, it looks like the warmest days are going to be Saturday and Sunday. And even though it cools off a little bit Sunday or Monday and Tuesday and next week, we warm right back up. We can easily be close to 70 degrees again by Tuesday and even into Wednesday. So the thing about it is this time of the year, you get those warm days. You enjoy them as much as you can because there's not many coming down the pike at all.
Yeah, and it's good to see that we've put a dent into the drought here in this area.
Yeah, that was kind of unexpected. I was not expecting us to get that much rain when it came over us with that thunderstorm event Wednesday night into Thursday. It looked like we were going to get some, but I was a little bit surprised by that myself. But nonetheless, there was some areas of DuPage and Cook County that got about 2.5 to 3 inches of rain. And sure enough, the ground soaked it up quite a bit. Places to the north got a little bit less, places to the south got a little bit less. But now all focus is on Tropical Storm Zeta, which is going to become Hurricane Zeta. And again, it looks like it's probably going to be moving somewhere over New Orleans, the Mississippi, Alabama area by Wednesday midday. And this is hot off the presses. This is right from the National Hurricane Center as about 15 minutes ago. So, wow. Yeah, things have not changed from the standpoint of the tropics. They kind of sneak up on us, don't they?
They really do, because you weren't expecting a whole lot to go on, and then boom, like this. And I will say, one of our listeners wrote to me this week and said, I don't remember Rick DeMaio talking about all this rain last week, and so I'm glad.
No, I did not. I was wrong in that. It looked like we were going to get maybe about a half inch to maybe an inch, but we got these periods of. I mean, it looked like we were going to get rain. But I kind of missed that slug of moisture that produced those thunderstorms. And thunderstorms will change everything, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got a little bit more than what I thought, but it was a good more of what I thought.
Yeah, it really is.
Plants are happy.
Yeah, the plants and the trees especially. So, yes. Rick, thank you so much. I appreciate it. You have a great Sunday, and we'll deal with some more rain and some wind later on. You have a great day today.
Take care, Mike, and good talking to you again.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Rick.
Oh, come on, Michael. Oh, wait. I know. Duh. It would help if I turned on the audio, wouldn't it? There we go.
Oh.
Okay. Want to thank everybody on the show today. Kay McKeen and Amy DeLorenzo, Jerry Adelmann from Openlands, Emily Lambert, and Renee Lyles. Thank you, Adam. Rick DeMaio. I want to thank Basil the dog for his participation, and
Kayla.
And Kayla, thanks, Kayla. And Kathleen, thank you. Until next time, go green or
go home.